When I was 6.5, my mom started acting different and acting a little bit weird. And during that time, my dad was a pastor. I had an older sister, an older brother. I was the youngest of 3. My mom was diagnosed with schizophrenia and all different sorts of stuff. She was put in psych wards, different hospitals. And during the 6-month period, my dad had to stop pastoring the church in order to take care of her. I remember during that time just having questions and feeling insecure and feeling kind of weird, like something was changing in my life. I remember Valentine's Day, 1989. My mom told me that she loved me and my sister, and she left and got in her car. That was the last time I saw her. So after my mom died, I remember believing that she had committed suicide because I was a bad kid, and that was the beginning of my life where I began to deal with a lot of fear of rejection and fear of abandonment that I actually didn't know started from when she had committed suicide. 2 years after my mom committed suicide, my sister, who was 2 years older than me, was diagnosed with neuroblastoma. That is a fatal children's cancer. So during that time, I remember that we were in the hospital every day. She started with chemotherapy and surgeries, and I remember being in elementary school, and I spent all my time in the hospital before school, after school, and yet I had gone from being in the hospital with my mom to now being in the hospital for another family member. During that time of my life, I was about 13 years old, and my sister was still battling the cancer. She was 15, and drugs entered our life. We both became pretty severe drug addicts. When I was about 20 years old, my sister died. It was Halloween in 2000. It completely shocked me when she died. It turned my life upside down, and any feelings that I had towards God turned into pure anger. 7 months after my sister died, I overdosed and ended up going to rehab. And during that time is when I saw God was still pursuing me and chasing me, even though I had so much anger at him and I wouldn't talk to him and I didn't want anything to do with him. I can look back and see that he had a plan in my life, and I ended up moving out of state and coming back. And during that time of coming back is when I began for the first time to want to know God. The first time in my life, my heart became more softened towards him, and realizing that I had not been able to achieve hope, peace, joy, or anything through the drugs, through the things that I had been doing in my life, and he clearly was not going to let me die. A man came into my life, and I fell pretty hard for him, head over heels, thinking that this is the guy, I'm going to marry him. Little did I know that it was going to completely turn my life upside down and take me back to a place that I was finally getting out of. It became very abusive and controlling. Within a few months, I was back on drugs in a way worse place than I had ever been before. So during that time, my family told me, we're going to have to make you disappear because you can't get free of him, and you're never going to be able to live your life. You're going to lose out on your entire life, and we don't know what's going to happen to you. And so during that time, I got sober, and I remember I felt in my heart that I was supposed to get publicly baptized. And I look back at that and I can say that I believe that I stepped out and I was choosing God in the midst of all my trauma and all my pain. And it was within 2 weeks after he completely delivered me, like supernaturally. I remember begging him every day to get me out of this, get me out of this. And I ended up getting fired from my job like the week after I get baptized. And I'm literally on a plane a week later headed to North Carolina with one suitcase. I ended up getting a job and working out there, and during that time it was not easy. I became suicidal again and severely depressed, alone, feeling like, this is again my life and what it is. And while I was there, I met a girl who was attending Rhema Bible School, and she was on her summer break. And I just felt and knew in my heart God wanted me to go to this school. So I end up just, picking up and literally just following her to Oklahoma. So from North Carolina, I end up going to Oklahoma a few months later and get there and move everything over there. And again, another huge just going with what I feel God is telling me. And it was not easy and it was uncomfortable. During that time while I was there, I also got involved in another church, Life Demonstration Church in Tulsa. Between that Bible school and that church, my life turned upside down with God's power and restoration and revelation of Him. I have been back in California now for 2 years, and I have gotten to use my story to help women be set free from things in their past, whether it's similar to what I've been through or it's personal to them. God's promises apply to everybody. They apply to me as they apply to somebody who's never had trauma and never experienced things like that. I found out in doing this type of ministry that women have even little tiny stories. They have no idea the impact that it's had on their life. They have no idea what it's done to them and how it's affected them, and that God even has restoration for the small things, the little things that aren't seen, that aren't as traumatic as what I've been through, or you have had a life as traumatic as mine. I have gotten to have a front row seat to watch God deliver and set free and light fire under women, push them more into their calling, their purpose, the plans that He has for them, and to get to see His power at work. And it's all been through coming out of all the pain and all the suffering, and that God is using my story now for good and for freedom. And I love to be able to be a part of it and watch what He is doing.